Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Investor More, and I'm outside a mixed-use property I bought a couple of months ago, and not a lot has happened with it because we've had so much going on with different properties and flips and commercial properties and buying a store and all of that. But we're finally getting ready to do some work on this one, and we're planning to meet the architect here today, which didn't work out as planned. We'll talk about that. And then I also wanted to show you a huge surprise we found in here. This is really cool that I did not know was here. And I'm going to talk about building permits a little bit too, and making sure the remodel, different stuff you're doing is worth it, because boy, building permits in that process can add a lot to the build, the costs, the time frame, as we know on some of our other properties, including the bar, which we are still working on. So let's take a look at the property. Of course, we love the likes, comments, shares, and check out investormore.com with much more information on everything we're doing, and a free book on there as well. So we haven't been here for a little while, but this is a very cool property. Most of it is rented. It has this building, an apartment upstairs. That house next door comes with it as well, and then an apartment in the back too. So there's a lot here. And by the way, we're in Colorado, and this doesn't normally happen here, but we've got an ice storm today. So it is slippery and just nasty out. Usually we get snow or rain, we don't usually get ice. So here's the property, and I'll show you the surprise here soon, but I have to keep you waiting a little bit. I bought this for, how much was it? $510,000, I believe. Did a 1031 exchange from one of my other rental properties. We had the apartment upstairs rented for $900 a month. The apartment in the back is $800 a month. The house is $800 a month. So they're all rented well below market value. We can up those rents. And the apartment upstairs, that tenant is actually leaving here at the end of the month. And his lease is up and he's not staying. And that's the one that's probably the closest to market rent. We might be able to bump that just a little bit, but the house and the other apartment, we can really increase those rents once those tenants move out. And we're not ones to usually come in and raise rents a bunch on tenants already here. We usually wait till they move out, or sometimes we offer cash for keys if the property needs a ton of work, like the complex where we're doing so much work. And once in a while, if rents are just super duper low, we might raise them a little bit after their lease is up. But for the most part, we wait until they move out and we can remodel, do some work, and then increase the rents after that. All right, so the big surprise here, I have been stomping on this floor, and we've never found a basement, crawl space, or anything, but it does not feel like a slab. And I confirmed it's not a slab here today while we were waiting for the architect, which we'll talk about that here soon too. Look at this. I managed to pull up some of the carpet with little kid scissors we found and a bungee cord, and there's hardwood underneath it. So that is really cool. Now I have no idea, I assume it probably covers most of this first floor. I don't know what kind of shape it's in. You can see right here, they've obviously cut in part of it right there. But boy, that would be cool if we had hardwood we could save in here. That would be amazing. So I didn't want to pull up all the carpet and mess up my pretty designs here, but I pulled up enough to see what was going on. So this is, I went over this in a video before. The new layout, we plan to put 2 residential apartments in here. It used to be a church, and it's already zoned for that. We'd have kind of a bedroom here, closets, bedroom, bathroom in the middle over there. This would be a living room, keep the kitchen, and we'd add a door back here, which used to be on the wall, but my tape fell down. And then we have an apartment on the front as well. But when doing something like this, even though it's already zoned residential, you're adding more units. We're putting in walls. We're putting in lots of plumbing, electrical, changing a lot. You have to get building permits, right? I mean, you can try doing it without them, and there's a chance you might get away with it. But if the city finds out, they might make you redo all of it, tear into walls, make sure it was done right. They can put a stop order. They can even fine you, put a lien on the property if you keep going too far with doing a whole lot of work without permits. So if you're doing major stuff like this, especially adding units, finishing a basement, doing additions, or major structural work, you need to get permits. And so for most of our flips and most of our properties, we try to avoid doing work that needs permits. We try to keep it cosmetic, doing minor repairs. Sometimes we have to pull permits, but it adds so much to the costs and process for most of the permits we pull, and it's something you really need to consider and think about before buying properties, before delving into it, because it really can change things. I mentioned the bar before. We bought a bar in a small town, and we've been working on that forever. And me, who isn't very smart sometimes, decided to change the layout a little bit in the town, and we were pulling permits there because that's a commercial property. It's going to be a bar. You're serving alcohol and some food, so you have to be, obviously very careful, permits and doing all of that, because you have to get a certificate of occupancy, all kinds of stuff. And in that process, by me wanting to move around the bar and some different stuff, the city said, well, now you have to get an engineer, get an architect to do everything and make sure it's all legit. So that probably added $25,000 in costs to that project by doing that. And looking back on it now, I really should not have done that, but we can't change anything now. We've gotten through that process. So we've just been waiting for the architect for a very, very long time to finalize everything there. The engineers finalized everything. We had to get drawings for the electrical, plumbing, heating, structural. It was a very involved process. So if you're gonna jump into things, doing permits and changing everything around, just realize it can be a very long process and really change things, especially if you need to get an architect or engineer involved. It can really add to the cost. Here's a shared laundry room, in case anybody's wondering. And so that's why we try to avoid doing it. And then something else to consider is every permit process is different in each state. Even in Colorado, each town is different. They use different companies to do permits. Like, it can be very frustrating figuring everything out, what's supposed to be done, what's not supposed to be done, what needs a permit, what doesn't need a permit. So it's smart to research the towns you're working in, the processes, and what's happening in each of those areas as well. So for this one, we definitely have to have permits, and we're meeting the architect ahead of time to get some drawings put together, because we know when we ask for a permit or say what we're doing, the town, the permit company is going to be like, okay, you have to have architectural drawings because you're adding apartments and completely redoing everything. So that was the plan, was to meet the architect here. The problem with that plan, besides the icy weather today, and Nikki very rarely does this, but our meeting was next week, not this week. So we got the dates a little bit mixed up, but I got to come here and do a fun video and find out that there's hardwood. So that's a bonus. So it's not a completely wasted trip. And it's good to check on your properties once in a while as well. We haven't been here for a little while, so we'll be making the trip back to Greeley, but it was nice to see this property and check on it and find the hardwood. So short video today, just really want to touch base on permits, that process. Be very careful knowing what is required in your city, state. There's also licensing differences. Florida, you have to be licensed to do almost everything. In Colorado, you don't, except if you're in different towns, and different towns have requirements for licenses. So all kinds of things to consider. Like this particular town, you do have to be licensed, but it's not like you have to be licensed with the state. You just have to apply to this town for a license, and it's a pretty easy process. Where if you had to get licensed in other towns, it's a more difficult process. It's all different. So in some ways, it's nice to not have as many restrictions and let the towns do their own thing. In other ways, it can be more complicated and confusing. So it's just good to know how it works in your area, your town, your city, before you start on really major, massive remodels. And another really good reason why, if you're just starting out and just beginning, to think about if it's smart to do a really massive, big remodel, because there's so many things that can pop up and jump out at you, like the permit process, that you don't know about. And once you bring in the permit process and people looking at property, again, it depends on your city, state, where you're at. They might be like, okay, this electrical's not to code, this plumbing's not to code, you don't have egress windows, you don't have the right insulation. They can make you go through and do so much more work you weren't planning on. So you really have to be careful with that as well. All right, thanks for watching. Love the support, the comments, the likes, the shares. Keep those coming. Can't wait to see what this looks like with all the carpet out and all, the hardwood in its glory, as I'm sure is in perfect condition underneath it. And maybe we'll find a basement or a crawl space too. Who knows? I've looked around the building. I can't find one. There's got to be one here somewhere. But yeah, we'll be back. Again, Invest for More has a ton more information. Free book on there if you want to check that out. And have lots of updates on other flips, other rentals, other stuff that's going on. And of course, the store and liquor store that we bought recently as well. So if you haven't subscribed yet, now's an awesome time to do it.